Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. We've got a very special comic this week to review, and that is Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong issue 1 by Brian Buccellato and Kristen Duce. A tie-in years in the making, and really one that you would have thought they would have been done to death by now. You would have thought that every year there would have been a Godzilla versus Batman or Superman or something like that, but it's taken them so long to get something like this out, and finally it is here. Brian Buccellato kicks things off with a bang as Godzilla arrives on the shores of Metropolis for some reason, looking to wreak havoc. But before we get into the action properly, we're treated to a story involving this world's Justice League, centering mostly around Superman, who is on the verge of asking Lois Lane to marry him. So he's frantically going around the world and sorting out as many disasters and dangers as he can before he goes on his very first vacation ever with his soon-to-be wife. Lots of the issue is Clark teaming up with each of the Leaguers and talking about his impending nuptials and getting a little bit of worldly advice from each of them, specifically the Flash, who kind of brings things down a little bit by mentioning his parents and saying his parents never really had things, but he knows that Superman and Lois is gonna make it. Brian also gets sneaky with the appearance of Titano, who up until he's revealed you think, oh, it's Godzilla's in town, but no, it's just Titano, and Superman and the Flash have to deal with the villain before taking him to Stryker's Island and meeting up with some of the rest of the Justice League members. Titano's attack of Metropolis wasn't a random thing, as the Legion of Doom have gathered and are sick of the heroes always stopping their plans. So Lex Luthor reveals that many of the recent disasters, including Titano, were to keep Superman and the rest of the League busy so they can break into the Fortress of Solitude. It doesn't end well for the villains as they immediately trip some alarms, and the League respond to the break-in led by Supergirl, who was covering for Superman so Clark can go on ahead with his proposal with Lois. And during the battle, the villains end up activating one of the mother boxes that Superman has in his trophy room, and it blasts the Legion of Doom to another Earth and to Skull Island, where they discover a world filled with monsters that could potentially be used against the Justice League. And thanks to a mysterious amulet Toyman also stole from the fortress, they might just be able to control them. Buccellato definitely had a lot of fun writing this plot out. It uses so many cool aspects from both DC Universe and the Monsterverse, melding them together seamlessly. His character arcs he sets up are also interesting as well. We've obviously got Superman and his impending proposal to Lois and all these monsters threatening that, but probably the most interesting one is Gorilla Grodd, which is very brief in this issue, but he sees Kong for the first time and sees him as some sort of ape god and tries to make contact with Kong, although we never see what actually happens with their part of the story, and I imagine it's going to be something that develops over the next couple of issues, with Grodd maybe taking control of Kong, or maybe being the one to control him thanks to his telekinetic abilities, which would be a lot of fun, but also a very big cliche which comes with these monsters, which is usually someone's, controlling one of the monsters to attack the other. We've seen it in the movies countless times, and it's just like a trope that happens with these movies. But I am hoping they actually bring over the thing from the Monsterverse, which is there's like a food chain hierarchy, and Kong and Godzilla's people were like the top of that food chain, and they were constantly warring with each other, and maybe we get to explore a little bit more about their histories together that we see very briefly in the movies, and stuff that's really interested me. Maybe it builds off stuff we're gonna see in the upcoming TV series and that new Empire film that's coming out as well. Either way, Brian did a really good job of setting up both of these worlds and then combining them together. Kristen Duce's artwork for the issue is massive in scale, and rightly so, with dealing with massive monsters. We get very few glimpses of the monsters this issue, and each one is just incredible as the last, especially the initial Godzilla sequence, which makes me feel like Christian might be a bit of a Godzilla fan since he gets a little bit more love than Kong this issue, though I'm sure we'll see a bit more of Kong in the next issue. But the sequence with Godzilla in the first couple of pages, with him backed by the setting sun and the Metropolis skyline, is just fantastic. And then the final page with Superman being the only hero left in Metropolis to confront the giant lizard. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of the action in the next issue now that the premise has been set up. And I also like that they gave it an actual premise. It wasn't just immediately cut to Batman and Superman fighting Kong, or Aquaman and Atlantis battling Godzilla in the ocean. I'm glad we've got a little bit of a build up to it, but then it also does have that very kids in and the play box playing with their toys feel to it, which it should absolutely have. This is Justice League versus Godzilla and Kong. Of course it's going to be, you know, no holds barred action, and that's exactly what we get here, and I'm really happy about that. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10. Check it out, you can't go wrong with it. Again, it's Godzilla, Kong, and the Justice League. What more could you want?